Good evening, everyone. Mike Palmer from Know Your Rights Group and Success Coaching International with another very important live update tonight. And I've got to tell you, I'm really excited tonight. As I know a number of you commented on and noticed, I've been a little bit flat, been a little bit overwhelmed, been a little bit frustrated over the last couple of weeks. But tonight, I'm genuinely, honestly, really excited with what's come out over the weekend. So if you haven't yet seen it, look it up. There have been literally millions of people taking to the streets in protest in Berlin, in Germany, in the centre of London, in the UK, literally millions. It has been absolutely fantastic to see. I genuinely feel like there's a shift occurring. I hope a lot of you watching this can feel that too. And I believe we can make the same thing happen here in Australia. Now, I want to make it clear, okay, because we don't want this video to get deleted by the fact checkers at Facebook or anything else or on YouTube, okay? I'm not suggesting people go to any of the protests that have been organised for the 5th of September, okay? I'm not suggesting that at all, okay? I'm not one of the organisers or anything like that, so I want to just make that clear. We don't want this, taken away or taken down or removed in any way, shape or form, okay? But I tell you, I'm excited because what I'm about to share with you here tonight is going to answer a ton of questions that I've been receiving, especially over the last week or so. So, first and foremost, I want to make it clear again that what we provide in these videos isn't, legal or financial advice in any way. It's just simply our research and some of the things that we've come across that you might like to know if you've got a whole heap of questions that your very own government and police force don't seem to want to answer for you. So, first and foremost, the most obvious question that we need to be asking our illustrious leaders is, why is it okay for people to turn up in the tens of thousands to protest for the Black Lives Matter principle, okay, which, by the way, was something that occurred on the other side of the world, okay, didn't really have any relevance to us here, but yet they're arcing up and complaining about us protesting against these insane lockdowns and restrictions, which are having real world effects right here, right now, for people in this very country. So I'm telling you, seriously, ask your local, state and federal MPs, why the inconsistency? Why is it okay for Black Lives Matter protesters? A few months ago, we've got similar restrictions in most states. Why is there a problem with these anti-lockdown protests now? And just see what they say. Shoot them an email, get on the phone and call them and ask them this simple question. Now, secondly, a lot of people are asking us, okay, Mike, we want to go to these protests, okay, what do we do when the police ask us to move on? Okay, well, guess what? They can't ask you to move on because the legislation says so. Now, this is the Summary Offences Act 1966, Section 6. As always, go and look this information up, confirm, verify, validate it for yourselves. Now, subsection 1 says, a police officer or a protective services officer on duty at a designated place may give a direction to a person or persons in a public place to leave the public place or part of the public place if the police officer or protective services officer suspects on reasonable grounds that A, the person is or persons are breaching or likely to breach the peace, or B, the person is or persons are endangering or likely to endanger the safety of another person, or C, the behaviour of the person or persons is likely to cause injury to a person or damage property, or is otherwise a risk to public safety. So this is what they rely on. However, subsection 5 clearly says this section does not apply in relation to a person who, whether in the company of other persons or not, is A, picketing a place of employment, or B, demonstrating or protesting about a particular issue, or C, speaking, bearing or otherwise identifying with a banner, placard or sign, or otherwise behaving in a way that is apparently intended to publicise the person's view about a particular issue. Okay, now yes, the governments will claim that a state of emergency or a state of disaster can have effects on other legislation. Yes, they can, but they can only do so when that effect and that other legislation or that other act is specified. There's nothing in the state of emergency, there's nothing in the state of disaster, okay, that says that it affects the operation of the Summary Offences Act. Okay, so if you are protesting about a particular issue, and especially if you are speaking, bearing, or otherwise identifying with a banner, placard, or sign, okay, about a particular issue, they cannot ask you to move on. Very, very important. Okay, so please, I urge you all, go and look that up. Okay, look it up, print it off, keep a copy with you, fold it up, keep it in your pocket, and have that with you. Now, I want to be very clear here, especially for everyone in Victoria. If you turn up to one of these protests and you're not wearing a mask, the police can come up and ask you for your name and address because they do have reasonable grounds to suspect that you're committing an offence because you've got no mask on. Okay, and again, under those conditions, all right, you are required to state your name and address. But of course, only do so under duress when they start to threaten you with arrest. Okay? Now, of course, if you turn up with a mask, that's going to be completely irrelevant. Now, again, if you provide your name and address under duress, and then the police go, oh, but hang on, you're more than 5 kilometres from your home, so we're going to issue you a fine for that. Say, perfect, fine, no problem, great. Hand it over. No issues. You don't want to get in fights or arguments. Challenge it down the track. Now, how do we do that? Through this Aussie Speeding Fines book. Yes, it says it's Aussie Speeding Fines, but it's all fines, okay? That 3-step process that's in Chapter 3 is a step-by-step letter process that you can use to challenge any unjust and unlawful fine. Whether it's not wearing a mask, being 5 k's from home, a speeding fine, parking fine, talking on the phone fine, failing to wear a bicycle helmet fine, not having registered dogs, whatever. It's all the same thing. The process is the same. You just edit it and adjust it to suit the particular fine you've got. Now, again, even if you did nothing else, even if you didn't want to challenge it, okay, and you get the fine, just turn it over the back, just say, I want this heard in court. At the moment, especially here in Victoria, people who are electing to have cases heard in court, they're not even being listed for the first mention date, let alone trial or hearing it, first mention date until like March or April at the earliest. Okay, so there's plenty of time, okay, to successfully challenge these fines. Okay, so please, if you're worried about that, don't be. Take the fine, it's just a fancy bit of paper. And as I've said before, okay, I firmly believe that not a single one of these fines, okay, will ever see the light of day in a courtroom. In fact, I was speaking to Darren just today, and he said there was a video that was doing the rounds from, I think it was the Attorney General's office, something like that, saying that they're directing the police to withdraw fines. I've already heard of a lot of fines being withdrawn as soon as people challenge them because they realise they don't have a legal leg to stand on. Okay, so just take the fine and keep going. Now, here's the important bit. They can't stop you again. They can't ask you to move on because of Section 6 of the Summary Offences Act. Okay? They can't issue you with another fine for not wearing a mask because they just gave you one. They can't issue you with another fine for being more than 5 k's from your home because they just gave you one. Again, the Infringement Act states that you can't be fined multiple times for the same offence in the same place on the same day. Okay, if you're on a road and a particular road and they set up 2 speed cameras, it's still only one offence of speeding. Okay, so make sure you're aware of this. Don't argue with them. Don't get into fights about this. Just say, no problem, if you want to give me a fine, that's fine. Fold it up, put it in your pocket, and keep doing what you're doing. Keep protesting, going about your business, whatever you need to do. Okay? So again, they can't ask you to move on. Now, of course, if you're wearing a mask, they've got no reason to ask you for anything at all. Okay, they can't ask you to move on, and they have no right to ask you for your name and address. Again, if you're not wearing a mask, they have reason to believe you're committing an offence. They can ask you, you do have to provide it. But if you're wearing a mask, they've got no other reason to believe that you're committing an offence. They can't just guess that you're more than 5 kilometres from home. Okay? So there's nothing to base that on. Now again, of course, if they keep pushing, if they keep saying, well, we're going to arrest you, whatever, great. Then under duress, provide them with that name and address. And they go, oh, look, we knew it. We knew you were more than 5 k's away. But that's fruit of the poison tree. Okay, that's like evidence obtained without a search warrant or outside the scope of a search warrant. If they didn't have the reasonable belief that you're committing offence, Okay, they had no right to ask for that name and address. So again, one of the simple things that you can do, especially if you're one of our more advanced members, if the police start, standing in front of you and asking you questions that they have no right to, you just simply say, "Excuse me, officer, are you attempting to detain me for the purposes of facilitating an investigation contrary to the Supreme Court ruling in the matter of Regina v. Banner?" Okay, now if you want to look all that stuff up, that's what the Know Your Rights book is all about. Okay, we've got all of those court cases, we've got all of those explanations. Okay, they're all in this book. There's links in the description to these books. Please, if you don't yet have it, go and get them. Okay, they are vitally important. They do honestly teach you all about your rights. All right. So we've covered that. Now, the other thing that I want to point out, because again, these are all the questions that are coming through, so I just want to check through that I'm answering everybody's questions. You do not have to carry identification on you. Yes, they can ask you to state your name and address. You say, "Fine, yes, under duress, my name is, John Smith, I live at blah, blah, blah street." That's it. They can't go, "Oh, where's your license to prove it?" No. If you are just walking down the street, you are not required to carry a license. Okay, we're not in Nazi Germany yet. Okay, so there's no lawful requirement for you to carry identification on you. Okay, even if you're driving, and I've covered this before, if you're driving, yes, you have to produce your license, or if you don't have it on you, they can ask you to produce it to a police station within 24 hours. So you don't even need to have your license on you at any time, especially not when walking. Okay, now this brings me to another point, because I got another article just through this morning from right here in Melbourne. Now, I know a lot of people have got very strong feelings towards or against cyclists. I don't want to get into that. I'll put that aside for a moment. But they were pulling cyclists over and asking them for their details and their identification to find out if they'd cycled more than 5 kilometres from home. Now, they had no right to do that. Okay? If you're not required to wear a mask when cycling, so they had no reason to believe that the people cycling were committing any type of offence. So they were pulling them in for no reason, no grounds. They had no authorisation, because there was no offence. They had no authorisation to ask for their name and address. And of course, as a cyclist, you're not required to carry a licence on you. So they're not required to produce that. Okay, so if you're a cyclist, if you know anyone who was a cyclist who was affected by this, please share this video around with them. If you've got access to cyclist forums or Facebook groups, whatever, pop this video up and let's get this out there, because every single cyclist who was fined should absolutely challenge those fines. They're completely unlawful. Okay, so this is I want to make this clear. Okay, if you're going, maybe put a mask on. It's up to you. That's your choice. But the minute you have a mask on, they've got no right to question you about anything. And you've got that Summary Offences Act, so they can't move you on. Okay. So we've got some real momentum, from what I understand, for these protests on the 5th. And of course, that's right around the entire country, which is fantastic. So again, I'm not urging you to go to them or anything like that. You've got to make that choice and decision for yourself. Okay. But I think we can get some great numbers if people choose to do that. Okay, now the other thing that got me really excited today was the news that Daniel Andrews has backed down from his push for this 12-month extension on the state of emergency. Now, a number of people have made comments on my post, because I put that up this morning, go, "Oh, but Mike, that's just standard negotiation techniques, ask for more than you want and come back a little." And yes, absolutely, that is correct. Of course, I teach negotiation strategies. That's what I do. Okay, but here's the thing. If nobody had arced up, if nobody had said anything, he probably would have got the full 12-month extension. The fact that people were bombarding their MPs, okay, via email, via phone, via letters and all the rest of it, meant that he's had to backpedal. And now, okay, within just a couple of days of announcing the push for 12 months, he's now down to 6 months, plus some other considerations as well. We've still got 2 days left before Parliament meets. This is not the time to take a step back. This is the time to push harder than ever before. So I'm urging everybody, please jump onto our website. Now, hopefully it works on my iPad and you can see it. Okay, so it's the knowyourrightsgroup.com.au. Just click on the vaccinations tab. Okay, scroll about halfway down. Okay, and you'll see a section there, lockdowns are unlawful. Now, you'll see here, there is an open letter to government, which I've spoken about on previous videos. This is Serene Tefahar's 25-page document, which explains why, because Daniel Andrews has failed to comply with his own legislation, the directives have already finished. we're urging everybody to send that letter to every police station they can, especially before next weekend, so every police member around certainly Melbourne and hopefully around the entire, the entire state understands that they have no lawful right to act. If they continue to do so, they can and will be sued personally. So please, if you don't understand the ramifications of that, download that letter, have a read of it, send it off. Now also, we've got the Parliamentary My Will letter. A lot of people are asking us, where's that Parliamentary My Will letter? Well, that's where it is there. And we've also got the cease and desist letter to send to the Victorian Governor. Okay, so all of this is freely available. You don't need to be a member or anything else. It's all there on our Know Your Rights Group website on the vaccinations page. Now, if some of you are perhaps new to this, seeing our videos for the first time, you're like, wow, I didn't know all this stuff. Okay, imagine what you're going to find out in this book. Okay, you have been lied to, you have been deceived for so long, and it's time for people to really wake up and understand what our governments are doing. Now, speaking of what our governments are doing, I want to leave you with this thought. Because we keep getting people abusing us, going, Australia's going to end up like the US, especially Victoria, if Dan Andrews doesn't get his extension on the state of emergency. Okay, well, here's the thing from the US. I'm trying to find it here. Here it is. Okay, this has just come out just today. Okay, the CDC, okay, that's the Centre for Disease Control, okay, quietly updated the COVID number to admit that only 6% of all of the 161,392 deaths recorded actually died solely from COVID. Okay? So please, go and look that article up for yourself. Okay, just 6% of the claimed 161,000 deaths were actually solely because of COVID. Okay? The other 94%, okay, get this, had an average of 2.4 other underlying conditions. Okay? Now, I mean, this just goes to prove that the data and the statistics that the governments around the world are relying on are hugely inaccurate. They're not just out by a little bit. Okay? They're not even out by a factor of, 20% or 30%. Okay? They've reduced it by 94%. Okay, and our government is doing exactly the same thing here, now, today in this country. Okay, Victoria, Melbourne especially has the absolute worst lockdowns, but every state has got some kind of restrictions. All the borders are closed, and it's all based on completely false and misleading data, which all in turn itself is based on scientifically meaningless tests. Again, if you don't understand all of this, please look on our vaccinations page. It's completely free. Read all the links and articles there and get your head around this for yourself. Okay, and then once you understand how you've been lied to, how you've been deceived, how our governments around the country have caused financial Armageddon, okay, with these insane restrictions, you can then take action to stop them. Okay, and if that gets you fired up, which is great, I urge you all to please grab these 3 books, of course, the Know Your Rights book, the Aussie Speeding Fines book, and then the Bank Secrets Revealed book. Okay, you reckon some of this is new to you. You want to see what the banks get up to, the fraud and deception, okay, that they engage in every single time, okay, they get involved in a home loan. Okay, again, a lot of people are struggling financially now. Okay, people are struggling with credit card debts, personal loan repayments, all that sort of stuff. We show you with a simple step-by-step process how to write those debts off completely. And again, anyone who's been watching some of these videos for a while now will have heard of all of the testimonials, in the tens and $20,000s of dollars of debts that have been wiped off. So these books really are vitally important. They can contain some really, really important information. So, as we are about to head into another week of restrictions, especially here in Melbourne and Victoria, and a lot of other states as well. I heard that the Gold Coast just had new restrictions brought in yesterday morning, and other states are talking about new restrictions coming in as well. So please, now is the time, as always, to get informed, get fired up, and get proactive. We will talk to you all again on Tuesday night on our radio show. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Australia. It's Karen Brewer here with the Bush Telegraph News. Hopefully by now we've all had a chance to catch up with David Icke's speech that he gave yesterday, or overnight actually, in London. Most fabulous speech. Everyone needs to watch and share that. It's about 15 minutes. It's a must, absolute must for viewing. And of course, as Australia wakes up today to the reality of what's happened over in Europe, we have decided, of course, to get our best walking shoes on, haven't we, Australia? Yeah. No doubt the politicians around the world were indeed watching what was going on throughout Europe yesterday as the people en masse stood together. Yes, they stood together, and they were quite firm in where they were going to take the matter, which is fabulous. And of course, on the 5th, it's our turn, and we, of course, will put our best foot forward because we know incest and paedophilia is wrong. We know suppression orders are wrong. We now know the network of filth, which is Freemason Demolay. We now know that the UN is, in fact, the administration branch of Freemason Demolay, and the dirty bastards have nowhere to hide. And, of course, we're going to just do a quick recap on the numbers because it's really important that we all stay focused on the numbers. I'll take the hat off now. That was my salute to that Assistant Police Commissioner Porky down there in Melbourne yesterday. He was very rude. He's got no manners. Does Porky? Got no manners. So we're just going to do a quick recap, and I'm going to continue to do this all through tonight's live as well. I'll just give you a quick recap here. Australia, facts and figures, okay? Now in Victoria, there is 128 politicians, 25,000 police, 6.5 million people walking on the 5th. Yeah. There's the good odds, aren't they, Australia? New South Wales, 135 politicians, 16,649 police, 7.5 million people. Yeah, you see that power? Power lies with the people. That's right, the power lies with the people. And now Queensland, we've got 93 politicians, 11,800 police, and of course, ladies and gentlemen, over 5 million people in Queensland. We are the power. Northern Territory, 26 politicians, 1,537 police, and near on 250,000 people. 250,000 people all walking. Yeah. Western Australia, 36 politicians, 6,768 police, 2.6 million people in WA. Yeah. South Australia, 69 Freemason Demolay dirty politicians, 4,948 police, 1.7 million people in South Australia. Yeah. And we do the walk. We do the walk of life. Tasmania, you have a total of 40 dirty Freemason Demolay politicians, 1,200 police, and over 500,000 people in Tassie. Freedom, people in Tassie, freedom. Walkie walkie. We also, in addition to that, have 227 federal politicians, 6,695 Australian Federal Police employees, whatever the hell that means, double speak, and 25.5 million Australians. Yes, that's right, 25.5 million. Now you have to add in, of course, our Kiwi mates over there in New Zealand are doing a fabulous job with their protest yesterday in Auckland, and as I understand it, there is protests being organised for next weekend as well. So they're standing with us. So we've got 25.5 million in Australia, and we've got 5 million Kiwis. That makes 30 million people, and not very many politicians. You see, isn't it interesting how they're cracking under pressure, Australia? You know, we got Porky coming out using terrible bad manners. No manners, that guy, got no manners. Porky there in Victoria came out. You see, that's an egg under pressure. The cracks are starting to show. And of course, you've got Daniel Andrews trying to maintain some sort of delusional authority, of which he lost control of weeks ago. And of course the media doing a fabulous job of exposing themselves and making a mockery of not only themselves, also their entire industry, you know. And so Australia, I just thought I would give you the quick roundup of the numbers. Nothing to fear. Oh no, we outnumber them. And of course we Australians are always dignified and graceful. We do not get angry, we get even, you see. And when you have bad-mannered people like I was going to say Constable Porky, but he's not, he's an Assistant Commissioner Porky, doing terrible name callings. You see, Australians are world renowned actually, for being larrikins. Yes, we channel our larrikinism at an extraordinary rate, and we're very successful at it too. So Porky, you see what's going to happen now, Porky? I'll just let you know, because apparently you've started a bit of a movement, mate, and there's going to be hundreds of thousands of these, probably millions across the country. Yes, we'll wear that badge of honour of the tin hat brigade or aluminium foil brigade or whatever you want to call it, because you see, Porky, every normal Australian knows incest and pedophilia are wrong. Yeah. You smell that, Australia? That's cooked goose. That's cooked goose, Porky. Yeah. Oh, a little bit of a bacon flavour too, I think. Anyway, Australia, I just want to have a read of your comments and see where everyone's on. Hi, Nina, how you going? Hi, Mary, how are you? No, Karen's here's worried that people are not awake. No, they're awake. Believe you me, they're awake. Every Australian knows what's happening down in Victoria is wrong. Everyone in Australia knows our borders being shut is wrong, and the media can try and hammer this all they like, but it ain't working. No, it ain't working, because every Australian is now playing their role in being the Bush Telegraph, because we know our politicians lie. 42,041 fellow Australians, it's pretty fucking obvious they lie. We know the media lie, and I hope that my friends and followers now realise the web of Freemason filth that is actually our judiciary, our media and our bureaucracy. But in reality, the number of them is very small. Yes, very small. And there's 25.5 million of us. And you see, there are decades of silence on the issue of the suppression orders protecting pedophiles. You can't undo that silence. Decades and decades of silence. Every journalist across the country is now convicted because of that silence. They're all guilty, Australia, because they're all involved. All of them are placed into those positions because they are part of the network. And they maintain the silence, and that silence convicts them now. So you see, Australia, people like Tracy Grimshaw, the likes of your Hildeberg, your people like Rowena, you know Rowena with the hair cut into the wood, your people like your Denise Drysdales. There's absolutely nowhere for those people to hide. Every single person in the entertainment industry in Australia and worldwide, all silent. There's nowhere for them to hide now. Your likes of your Strops, your Delvine Delaney's, the likes of your Ali Waeeds, your Kerry Bickmores, nowhere for them to hide now. Your likes of Carl Sanderlands and Jackie O, your silences convict you now. Yeah. And all of these people, so-called media personalities, turns out they're not so personality-wise anyway, are they? They just MK Ultra mind-controlled fuckwits, playing their role to suppress the people. It's not going to work. No. Take a look at Europe. How's that working out for you, Mr. Hildebrand or whatever his name is? You know, the bloke that never knows how to shave. Can someone please go tell that Joe Hildebrand, I think his name is, he needs to stand closer to the razor. Yeah, he's a little bit soft in the head. And of course, Australia, we have of course your news readers like your Mark Ferguson, mute. Your John Laws, your Ray Hadleys, your Darren Hinches, mute. And of course, all that silence convicts them now. There ain't nowhere for you bastards to hide now. And Senator Bill Heffernan, we thank you. You left 18 years, you're at the slog at this. And wow, what a man you are. And of course, I think every Australian across the country is now tapping into that courage. Same with Franca Arena. Man, what a gutsy lady you were, Franca, in the 90s, and left behind a trail of evidence for us to follow as well. The two only honourable politicians we've ever had in Australia. Wow, they did us proud. To the 42,041 fellow Australians that contacted that Royal Commission, I hope you're all so proud. Your stories have been heard, and because you told them, you exposed this network of filth, this Freemason Demolay network of filth that crosses every charity, every government bureaucracy, every religion. And you guys are so strong and brave. Brave people. And justice is coming, because I really think we'll have to definitely restructure the judiciary, and all of the judges are out, and we're going to put all these people in. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. And yes, Sol's done a great job. Sol has done a great job. And isn't he a fabulous guy? I think he's about 77 years old. And wow, you know, what amazing people we have in Australia. You know, you look at Jamal, people like Fanos and Raphael, people that just decided enough's enough and we're going to speak. Years ago in Sydney, on a Sunday afternoon before we had television and all that shit, they used to have soapbox corner down at the Domain in Sydney. And what that was is that just average Joe people would go down to the Domain and they would stand on a soapbox and just talk to the passing crowd about whatever was on their mind politically, you know. And people would often walk through the Domain of a Sunday for their outing, you know, family outing. And so they would just stop and listen and, you know, whatever. And there's something we need to think about bringing back. You know, that perhaps the Domain is once again used for soapbox Sundays, because it's a collective of people, average Joe people, speaking their mind is how we find solutions to everything. I mean, you look at the amazing work that's gone on, the people that have come together over the last 6 months across Australia, from all different nationalities and creeds, but all of us knowing that something was very, very wrong. Yeah, and it's going to I will suggest to you is the very beginnings of freedom this coming Saturday, Australia. And moving forward, of course, we all need to know that we never ever again elect any Freemason Demolay. You got to know everything about any candidate running in your electorate before you even consider putting a number in a box on a ballot paper. We are never again going to mindlessly give our numbers away. And if we are not 100% sure, then we're going to draw a line through every name on every ballot paper. Because never again are Australians going to be abused by the very people we elect. Never again. Everyone's going to wise up. Everyone's going to be having these conversations around the dinner table with their children. Everyone's going to be teaching everybody else, and that's how we overcome. Because the Bush Telegraph cannot be stopped. No, it cannot be stopped. And we are wising up really quick. So we're going to continue to have these conversations.
Now we're done with your tricks. Don't tread on us. Don't tread on us. We're not afraid. You work for us. 'Cause you work for us. We're not your slave. Don't tread on us. You crossed the line. Soon you will pay for all your crimes. Don't tread on us. Don't tread on us. Now it's payback time. Don't tread on us. We're not afraid. You work for us. We're not your slaves. Don't tread